Hiya, my name's Charlie and welcome to my channel and welcome to the best books of 2022. I will also link previous videos, like I made the 10 best books of the year so far that I made in July, and I'll link that in the description. I also did filmed in a YouTube short with honourable mentions, again in the description. Last year I read a total of 142 books, which is like crazy to me. I never really set a goal or anything, and even if whether I read like 10 books or 5 books, whatever you read, it's like I'm always quite happy with. But yeah, that was a lot of books, and it made the decision what to put in my top 12 very difficult. So yeah, I read a total of 121 fiction and 18 non-fiction. That's something I really want to correct and read a little bit more non-fiction in 2023. There will be a goals video coming up about all that though. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to get into the top 12. Let me know if you want to play a game and like what you think is going to be in my top 12. You can write down as many as you think you can guess, or what you think is going to be in my top 5, etc. and see how many you get right. Right. I have tried to do this in some sorts of semblance of order from like books I obviously these are all my favourites, but I have done it. My top is my top, and etc. So, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is a non-fiction. Robin Wall Kimmerer is an Indigenous author, and she talks about the natural world. She talks about sort of what we put into the natural world, how we treat the natural world, and the better we treat it, the better it will treat us. And it's just a really interesting, very relaxing book. I listened to this on audio, which I highly recommend. It's very soothing, calming, and Robin has got the way, like, she's just, yeah, it's very meditative. I feel like the audiobook is very meditative. So if you need something like that at this time of year, especially, it's probably a really good one to head to in January for that reason. Yeah, that was my number 12. My number 11 is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zoulfa Katouh. This is a YA fiction by a Syrian author. I believe actually she's the first Syrian author to be published in both the UK and the US in the YA category, which was interesting to me. This is a story about set in obviously in Syria, and the leading character, Suhaiymah, she's been through a lot of trauma. Her house, at the beginning of the book we find out that her house has been bombed, some of her family members have been killed. She's suffering from this head injury, and as a result of this head injury she sees this like dark, sinister character, and he is a presence in this story. Suhaiymah works in the local hospital, and she's trying to find a way to sort of escape Syria with her sister-in-law, and her pregnant sister-in-law is thing. So yeah, this book is just so wonderful, and it's just, again, it's got so much heart. There's sort of a love story to it, so I don't know if you like that, you might like that. If you don't like that element in it, element in books, you might not like this one, might not be for you. But yeah, this book is just so wonderful. The way it sort of talks about war and the impact of that, and yeah, it's just but highly recommend. And it's very twisty turny, and the plot was really gripped me. So yeah. The next book is a non-fiction that I want to talk about, and this is Tangled in Terror by Suhaiymah Manzoor Khan. Suhaiymah Manzoor Khan is a poet, and I first came across her by reading Post-Colonial Banter, which a couple of years ago, and I was trying to hunt out and see whether she had any more poetry, when I found through Pluto Press she's actually released this non-fiction. It's a non-fiction to sort of open your eyes about like biases you might be holding, etc, etc, and it was really eye-opening to me. Again, it was a very accessible non-fiction, and yeah, I just think it's the one I highly recommend. It's sort of the themes within it, which I will put a picture of the contents page on the screen so that you can kind of get an idea of what she's talking about within these pages. But yeah, it's one that I think is just really worth checking out. It's a good one and a good non-fiction that I'd highly recommend. But yeah, obviously. In at number 9 is Milk Teeth by Jessica Andrews, and I found out about this book from Ange's Book Chatter, and also from Scott from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, and they have been raving about this book for good reason, obviously, because it's in my top books. And this book me so much. The writing from like the page one, like the writing style, I just really enjoyed. In this book, we talk about a young girl who is from the north of England, and she's sort of gets into this relationship. It sort of leads her over to Barcelona, but mainly the thing with this book is that it's discussing like body image and about sort of her struggles to sort of like grow as a person, while sort of feeling like she has to sort of almost like shrink herself. I feel like I'm not going to be doing this this book justice, so I will link like maybe like some reviews that of this book in the description, better reviews than I can give. But this is a quote from the book that I just love. I wake up to dawn over the mountains, the rust-coloured hills looming in the distance, the day seeping into the sky like blood into milk. And I think this sort of like encapsulates the sort of bitter sweet nature of her writing, like how she can have like a sentence like the rust-coloured mountains and then say the day seeping into the sky like blood into milk. I think that perfectly encapsulates the sort of writing within these pages, and it's just so gorgeous. And I loved it so much that I went and picked up a copy of her first book, Saltwater. So yeah, I'm excited to read that this year, and I feel like Jessica Andrews has the potential to be one of my favourite authors. In at number 8 is My Name is Leon by Kit de Waal. I did talk about this in my books of the year so far. In this book we follow young Leon, who initially in this book is being looked after by his mother, who is struggling with her mental health and alcoholism. He's also got a baby brother called Jake, who is Jake, and Leon is sort of like, obviously in the initial pages, takes responsibility for Jake, even though obviously he's too young to do so really. And it's very hard hitting. It's very raw. It's very sort of you really feel for these brothers. Leon is black and Jake is white, so they both get put into care and separated, which is just awful. But yeah, in the end, it sort of like talks about family and things like that. So it is very hopeful, but it's not all bleak and sad. And it's just one that I highly recommend. I read this for Lauren in the Books' Patreon book club thing, and it was just wonderful. There was so much great discussion around it. And yeah, it's if you want to check out sort of like a non-fiction version of it, I'd say My Name is Why by Lem Sissay is another great place to head to. If you have already read this book, I recommend that one, or vice versa. So yeah. Right, in at number 7 is An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon. This is a sci-fi book, which is 100% not a Charlie book at all, and it's probably the biggest, like in terms of like genre, this is like one of the biggest shocks to be on my favourites of the year list, because yeah, definitely outside my comfort zone. In this we follow Asta. This book is set in space. It's basically a slave ship set in space, representing the antebellum South and sort of all of that. It's very again, another really hard-hitting read, but the characterization in this book is just so well done. And it sort of like talks about how Asta is like doing everything she can to fight against a system that is obviously out there to oppress her, and she's just such a wonderful character. And yeah, I highly recommend this book, as I do all of these books are my top books of the year. Right. The next book in at number 6 is People Person by Candice Carty Williams. I adored this book, obviously, as I do always. And this is about 5 siblings. Predominantly in the story we're hearing about Dimple, who is one of the sisters. And something at the beginning of the book sort of happens to Dimple, which then leads the rest of the siblings to sort of like gather around her and sort of aid in the story, and the plot then goes on from there. One of the people I loved within this book was Cyril Pennington, and he is not a main character of this book, but he is discussed a whole lot, and the effect of he's sort of an absent sort of father figure, but you feel like you get to know him as you're getting to know the characters through the other plot. I feel like Cyril Pennington is sort of almost like a secret star of the show, if that makes any sense, because yeah, you sort of uncover more about him and why he became distant from them, etc, etc. This is just such a wonderful book, and I feel like, again, it's another one I feel like I'm not doing justice to. I just adored the characters, all the characters within this, and yeah, obviously the character of Cyril Paddington especially. So yeah, another one for the list. So right, in at number 5, I have got a classic. This is the first time that I've had a classic in my top books of the year that I can remember, and it is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I listened to the audiobook of this, and it was narrated by Matt Lucas. This is the classic sort of Dickens tale of rags to riches. We follow the main character of Pip, growing up and going through various stages of his life as he meets different types of characters, and sort of like when he's got money and when he hasn't got money, and when he's found love, etc. All of these things. But yeah, there were so many characters within these pages that I just adored, and just the audiobook again, it just felt like watching, like, it felt like because the audiobook narration was done so well, it felt like I was watching like a film or something. There's a character called Magwitch within these pages, who initially you meet quite early doors, and you kind of feel like he's like this, he gets almost sold as like sort of on the page as sort of a little bit villainous, but he's so much more than that, and I just love the character of Magwitch so much. Magwitch is like one of my favourite bookish characters. But yeah, brilliant, just brilliant. And again, the audiobook, I feel like Charlie mentioned that he listened to an audiobook narrated by a different narrator, and he still had a similar experience. So I definitely feel like Dickens is worth listening to via audio. Maybe you get more out of it like that. In at number 4 is If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. This was my first experience of reading James Baldwin. It's a very short book. It's sort of less than 200 pages, so I don't want to go too much into the details of this plot, other than to say that we follow a 19-year-old Tish at the beginning of the book, and we are hearing that the love of her life, Fonny, is in jail for a crime he didn't commit. He has been accused of rape, and it sort of, you get flashbacks to the past, and also so you're hearing about how they fell in love, etc., and their story, and then obviously, but yeah, this was just like literally this shook me really to the core. Like, I just loved this book, and like I can 100% see how so many people love James Baldwin just through this book alone. Like, the power of this book, it was phenomenal, and yeah, it really touched me and moved me. It's just, this book has got so much heart, and again, it balances plot very well, and I feel like this would be one I want to reread, and I really want to read more James Baldwin this year, and I can't believe that it's taken me so long to even get to this. So yeah, yeah, I feel like this is a good place to start with Baldwin as well, given my experience with it. Let me know, any of you guys got any other great James Baldwin books, recommend books for me, put them in the comments below, because I'd love to know where the next best place to maybe head to would be. Yeah, that's that one. My book at number 3 is Feminism Interrupted by Lola Olufemi. This was in my number 1 spot in the books of the year so far, like in July, and I didn't think anything would beat it, but obviously clearly 2 books have come along and done so. This is a non-fiction, just obviously discussing feminism, and it does so in such a diverse and brilliant way that it sort of, I haven't really read about before. And yeah, the conversations that you have talking around gender, and like obviously lots of people, there's a certain type of feminism that lots of us hear about that I feel like excludes a F ton of people, and this book doesn't do that. This book, yeah, like I said, it just talks about feminism in a way that includes, includes everybody, and I hadn't read about that before, and it really made me think. And yeah, it was just, again, this is another one that I will reread again. I did give the physical copy to Charlie, but I've still got the e-copy on my phone, because when you buy from Pluto Press, when you get a physical book, you will get automatically, currently you automatically get the ebook as well. So yeah, but yeah, highly recommend it. I'm going to keep banging on about this book to the end of time. If you haven't read Feminism Interrupted by Lolu Olufemi, please do. So yeah. Now I'm in at number 2. Can you guys guess which book I'm going to talk about? I bet you guys will guess. This is The 7 Moons of Maali Almeida, and I adored this book. I have done so many videos with Charlie, my lovely friend Charles Heathcote, links in the description, talking about this. So I don't really know whether you guys want to hear me talk about it anymore. This is a book by a Sri Lankan author, by Shehan Karunatilaka, and he is the winner of the Booker Prize, which we were really happy for. Me and Charlie were jumping up and down when we saw that this book won the Booker. So yeah, in this book we follow Maali Almeida, who the leading title character of Maali Almeida, who was a war photographer, and he had been tragically killed, and he's trying to he's in the afterlife, in the afterlife waiting room, I would say, and he's trying to work out who killed him, like why he's there, and he's got set till 7 moons to just uncover the mystery of what had happened to him, because he's got those memories missing, and there's so much in this book that I adored. The writing is gorgeous. There is heart in this book. There is humour in this book. There is tragedy in this book. It has something for kind of everyone, I feel. And there were so many pages where I was like messaging Charlie, taking pictures of like quotes, etc., and just sending them to him. Yeah. This could have easily been my favourite of the year, except for the one that was, obviously. Yeah, I adored this book so much. So I'm really, like I said, really happy for it that it won. In at number 1, every single person I'm sure will already guess this, and this book is Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer. I adored this book. And the thing about this book is that so this was longlisted for the Booker, I'm sure you guys all know. And the thing about this book is that out of the long list, I would have probably written this off the most, because from the surface you hear this as a cancer narrative. So you know that the character of Lydia, who is the main protagonist in this, is dying from cancer, and you know this at the beginning of the book, like you know it, and you're told it, and you're hearing her story. Again, this is another one that flashes back to the past of her growing up and her experiences of different things. But yeah, so on paper this book shouldn't have worked for me, but it did. There's the characterisation of Lydia, Harry and Iris. Harry is her husband, Iris is her daughter. I just loved all of those characters, and there were moments I was just like, these characters felt so real to me. And there's also you're also hearing from this like presence within her. You're told, like, you feel like at the beginning of the book, at one point you feel like the other perspective is cancer itself, but as that narrative is changing and evolving, you know it's coming deeper than that from within her. So it's the internal battles within her, I think. But yeah, I just love this book. Iris and Lydia's relationship just really got to me. There's a bit at the end when, spoilers if you don't want spoilers, I don't know, near the end when Iris has got this cold, and so they're keeping Iris and Lydia apart for obviously to try and protect Lydia, and they're talking through this door, and oh my god, it makes me emotional even talking about it. But like, there's a moment where so Iris just opens the door and then just gets under the covers with poorly Lydia, just to look after and comfort her, and it just literally broke me, like it really did. And there's so much love within this book, and yeah, I just adore this book. I thought this would be one that stays with me forever, and I highly recommend it. And whilst it's a cancer narrative, it is very emotional and it is very moving, but it's so much more than that. It's just so much more than that. I highly recommend Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies, and I feel like it'll be one of my favourites potentially of all time. So yeah, and that is my favourites of the year. Did you guys guess what was my number 1? I bet you all did, because I haven't made it a secret. And let me know what your favourites of the year are, and which books you enjoyed loads in 2022, or what books you're excited for in 2023. Wouldn't mind knowing that as well. So yeah, take care. Sending you guys lots of love. Goodbye.